Well, on now to our next big debate tonight. Arvind Kejriwal, the Delhi Chief Minister, has reacted to the BJP statement that a Delhi government probe didn't name Arvind Kejriwal at all. Arvind Kejriwal says the BJP is begging for an apology. Sorry, I won't oblige, is what he says. This on a day when the well-known lawyer Gopal Subramaniam says he will go ahead and head the inquiry into the Delhi District and Cricket Association's murky dealings with or without any further consent of the Lieutenant Governor. Joining us now to debate this, Nalin Kohli and Adarsh Shastri. Nalin, let me come to you first. According to Gopal Subramaniam, and this is his legal understanding of the situation, as far as he is concerned, prima facie, the Lieutenant Governor has consented to the appointment of the commission. This is his legal view. And to further add to that, he says, and I quote, in view of the resolution being passed by the Legislative Assembly by virtue of Section 3(1) of the Commissions of Inquiry Act 1952, there is an obligation upon the government of NCT to set up a commission of inquiry. Therefore, why do you oppose this?
Well, actually, first is let's talk about it legally only. He's quoting the correct Commission of Inquiry Act 1952, but the understanding, and there can be 20 legal opinions exactly contrary to this, which will point out that the competent authority is the Lieutenant Governor. That is the issue with the first Commission of Inquiry that was also put out. These are matters that eventually are going to get adjudicated in the courts because there is a divergence of opinion on this. So therefore, my memory, if it also serves me right, then I think Mr. Gopal Subramaniam's initial comments were to the contrary to what he's now saying in a legal opinion, that he's going to wait for the competent authority to clarify it. I think it was on the very first day or the second day.
If I can interpret this letter correctly.
No, the letter is later.
He says prima facie, the Lieutenant Governor has consented to the appointment of the commission.
That's not my information and what's in the public media.
Let me get that from you. As I understand this letter, he says that he, on the basis of the Lieutenant Governor having perused and possibly initialed the proceedings of the House, it is okay. Gopal Subramaniam seems to suggest that the LG knows and therefore the consent has been given.
Yeah.
How can that be the case?
So, well, you know, when this commission of inquiry was set up, proposed to be set up, and when it was set up with the knowledge of what the Article 239 AA states on the Constitution for the statehood of Delhi. And clearly, the prima facie, there is case where this commission of inquiry can be set up. And that's the reason Gopal Subramaniam has now confirmed that he has no issues. In fact, Justice Karju himself, in a detailed note, has specifically mentioned why and in what manner is this completely constitutional. So I see no reason in that. And my question, in fact, is if there is nothing to be concerned about, with the wrongdoings in the DDCA, with the erstwhile president of the DDCA, then what is the concern? Let the inquiry happen.
Nalin, what's the problem? Let it happen?
Well, there are two parts to it. The first, of course, is the dispute that is there, obviously, whether that is a competent authority to start it, especially if the Lieutenant Governor hasn't done it, and knowledge based on a proceeding in the Assembly, while it is taking place, cannot be taken as clearance. That way the Assembly could come, technically speaking, and just on a hypothetical case, say that we are now announcing the following, we don't need to take the formal approval of the LG on a host of matters. So I think that's an area that will, as in my opinion, very clearly get adjudicated in the courts.
But just to interrupt you for half a second.
The second is the political part.
No, but just half a second. If Arun Jaitley is called, and he would likely be called by Gopal Subramaniam since his name has appeared, would he therefore turn around and say, I will not appear because I do not accept the legal validity of this probe?
Well, I won't comment on it straight away. That's something we will have to look at. But the basic question that hypothetically, since you are asking it, what comes to my mind is if something is not under the due process correctly established, then therefore are you going to put yourself into that role because it's not correct in law? So therefore, just because they have decided we are going to have it, call it a commission of inquiry, and then we have to go back to the root of it. If I'd again look at it now politically, coming back to the political point of it, because those points are also coming up. There was a DDCA report that came in, which was waived with vociferously. There has been an SFIO.
No, but the DDCA report has not cleared anybody's name.
No, but the DDCA report either does not even clearly say.
Further inquiry.
Yes, but it does not even clearly say that Mr. Jaitley is there.
Prior
to that is the SFIO.
It needs to be investigated.
Let me finish my point. There are two investigations. The SFIO,
yes.
While he is leader of opposition under the Congress government, UPA government, has not found anything specifically against Mr. Jaitley. Nor has that DDCA report, which is what are the two issues so far that had been raised vociferously. Either of them have not. Now, is this to be seen when you are going? So my counter is when there are two reports that were first taken cognizance of, in their political arguments. Thereafter, you're setting up a commission of inquiry. What? Are you trying to witch hunt?
Why don't you
because you're not being able to find something.
Go ahead.
Well, first, let me point out that it's the Ministry of Sports, Government of India, which asked the government of Delhi to investigate this, firstly. And there is a letter as recent as July of this year asking the government of Delhi to do it. Secondly, it is very easy and convenient to say, pick up one line from the SFIO report saying that it completely exonerates Arun Jaitley. The point is, at the same time, that report consistently and continuously mentions that there are gross irregularities, number one. Number two, Mr. Arun Jaitley was the president of the DDCA and continues to be patron-in-chief for the last 15 years. Is he the Manmohan Singh of DDCA? If there were wrongdoings happening in the DDCA, it was under his watch. And if that is the case, what is the issue? Why the apprehension of this commission? What is the apprehension of coming and facing an inquiry?
Okay, pretty easy. By the logic that Mr. Shastri is taking, then Mr. Kejriwal's 2 law ministers have been sacked for patently illegal issues. So by the same, he's the head of that government. So therefore, Mr. Kejriwal should be in the dock. You don't draw these simple kind of logics. I love you, you love your daughter, so I love your daughter.
Mr.
That's
Kohli,
not how law does. May I just have
sure,
that?
sure.
Then I'm sure you will have a chance. We're having a fairly decent, I think, conversation.
Carry on.
So
Yes.
therefore, I love you, you love your daughter, so therefore I love your daughter.
Why don't you
don't go on that. There is a logic to it.
It's a
simplistic view. Second point, on the SFIO also. Therefore, the next presumption that is based, that's why this whole thing is based on a premise that is not strong, thereafter trying to build on that premise and then trying to turn it political. Oh, because you are not, first the premise is wrong, the structure is wrong, then you say, oh, because you are not submitting yourself to it, so you must be guilty.
Okay.
This is not how the rule of law works.
First of all, as far as Delhi government's law minister is concerned, Arvind Kejriwal, I think, set the highest example by terminating and sacking the minister as soon as he found out. So, number one. Number two, the Prime Minister of the country has himself hinted, giving the example of Advani ji, saying that if this is the case, let Mr. Jaitley step down, let Mr. Jaitley step down and let there be a fair probe. What is the challenge? I am not able to understand the apprehension within the BJP and the government and Mr. Jaitley to not step down till the time is absolved.
As I am unable to completely understand why is the entire agenda of the Aam Aadmi Party, which after a historic win of 67 seats, instead of delivering governance for which a government comes, is constantly to find an excuse to make an allegation against some, an accusation on that, build on that allegation, accusation, and therefore go. I'm coming to it. I'm coming. As I told you right at the beginning, you set up a false premise,
so you don't believe
then you start going. You do
coherent.
Anything incorrect in law.
Mr.
Jaitley, just to finish it, one minute,
yeah.
just to finish it. Mr. Jaitley, after all, knowing fully well the consequences of what it means to go to court, has filed a case in which he also gets subjected to cross-examination.
Sure.
So everything, it's not as if anyone runs away from it, but whatever is done has to be correct in law, not on the whims and fancies of one who desires to create something out of their own free will.
What if nobody decides to appear before Mr. Gopal Subramaniam? What can the government do?
So, well, that is a technical point, and I really don't know what can be done. But I guess it would be contempt, clearly, and the legal perspective would have to be taken on that.
I will answer that.
And possibly Mr. Kohli would know the legal aspect. I don't know that. All I'm saying is that what is the reason for not coming and not agreeing for this commission of inquiry? Secondly, what I'm unable to understand is that why is the BJP conveniently quoting one particular line again and again in parliament and otherwise from the SFIO, not looking at or conveniently ignoring the DDCA, the investigation report, conveniently ignoring the SFIO report, and conveniently ignoring the report by 2 judges who are there as election agents for the election in the DDCA.
So let me go one by one. On the SFIO, nobody is looking at this. In any judgment, and I would encourage you, pick up any judgment, High Court, Supreme Court, anything, the contentions of every side would be there. At the end of it, there would be a conclusion. It could be a 100-page order, but the conclusion may be summarized in a single paragraph, which is the net effect of that entire proceeding. So are you going to say, oh, because we want like a certain contention, and ignore the end result? That is not a logic. The second part to it is about contempt, and that's only, I'm not making an accusation. The power of contempt is defined based on a court of record. So you have to see the constitution that is given to the Supreme Court, High Courts. It's not given to a commission of inquiry. It's not even given to tribunals. So the contempt issue is non-existent. Obviously, Adarsh doesn't know, and he was forthright about it. The third part to it, in terms of saying, why don't you submit? That's where they are stuck. They are trying to somehow, and it has to be seen in the context of what? 237 pages of the DDCA doesn't find something against Mr. Jaitley, does not name him also.
No, but
thereafter, what is it? It's based on the CBI. Where is the source? That's where the battle starts.
Okay, but
the CBI raids Rajendra Kumar, and what's the first accusation that the Chief Minister makes? Oh, they are looking for this report. That's why my office was done.
CBI raid, lots of questions have also been raised about.
The CBI raid, 50 hours of questioning of Rajendra Kumar, and they don't come out with anything. The Caesar note of the CBI talks about files which are of the last 3 months date. I really don't understand. And then they talk about the fact that the CBI raid was against an officer. The office of the Chief Minister was beyond reach, beyond bounds for all the rest of the officers working in that office. I don't understand why the BJP is trying to bypass the fact that they were in the Chief Minister's office to evaluate and look at the file on the DDCA.
Let me answer that.
Because if the case was against Rajendra Kumar, and this we have said this time and again, why were the raids not conducted on officers, ministers, Chief Minister of that time and point? Why did they not go to the departments where it was happening?
Let me answer.
Why go to the Chief Minister's office, who was the Chief Minister last 10 months?
On the same, first starting with all the whys, then I'll come on to it. The same why is when you knew that there is an officer on whom an investigation is, a vigilance issue is pending, on which it was brought to the notice of the Chief Minister, then why the need to hold on to someone who's tainted? Why the need to go out of your way to do it when you know there are questions being asked of him? So there is no end to whys. The question here is the CBI. Now, why are they conducting an investigation? So either we have to decide who finally is going to put a stamp of approval on the CBI. No higher than the Supreme Court. It's the same Supreme Court which called them caged parrot. It's the same Supreme Court goes out and says we want to give every next case to the CBI. Eventually, a court of law will adjudicate. Why are they conducting an investigation in a particular manner? No, that has to be decided by someone in the Aam Aadmi Party. So now they will also be deciding what is the nature of an investigation.
Nalin, we are running out of time. I just want to ask you a simple question on you believe the legality of Gopal Subramaniam heading this inquiry commission, it's not valid. Justice Karju has written a letter. He writes a very simple point. He says, how can a body, in other words the state legislature, legislate or deal with a matter if it cannot even inquire into it?
Yes. So therefore the question comes out onto that. First of all does the state legislature have, is it the competent authority on this? Because the matter of whether cricket bodies would qualify as an object of the state, that's first, that needs to be clearly understood.
No, but that's been answered also.
Second is about Dr. Justice
Entry 33 of the state list in the 7th scheduled of inquiries can be held.
Vishnu,
right?
Vishnu, that is interpretation in the Supreme Court. Whether it's a judgment, you may have a contrarian judgment.
Yes.
Within that, there may be a dissenting judgment.
Yes.
Does that mean essentially that it's wrong? No. So they are having a view. I'm saying if a legal opinion is so important, I'm sure there can be 20 legal opinions on the contrary too. But at the end of the day, so far, looking at Article 239AA, which is what is also in the courts,
yes,
the interpretation of it, looking at the question of law and order, looking at the question of police and land, those 3 entries, 1, 2 of the state list, which don't fall under the purview of the state here, those are questions that are all being asked, adjudicated. So our point is very simple. This seems to be a witch hunt. What it is driven by is
you're talking about Article
governance.
239AA. I just want to offer a contrary point of view. This is what Gopal Subramaniam writes in view of the express words of Article 239AA of the Constitution, and in particular the Legislative Assembly being treated as a state legislature for the purposes of Article 324 to 326 and 329 of the Constitution. I am left in no doubt that this is a state legislature for all practical purposes.
On 239AA, basically it is about the unions. The state, it is union territories of the union. Territories of the union are governed by a lieutenant governor, an administrator. That administrator is called a lieutenant governor in Delhi. So therefore, Delhi falls under that as much as Pondicherry or any other union territory.
Mr. Kohli,
now to image, just
last
therefore, I can also, just on an opinion, I can also give the Aam Aadmi Party a contrarian opinion.
Justice Thakur, Chief Justice of India, has corroborated and upheld the judgment of the Delhi High Court in 2004, in which it says the office bearers of the cricket associations throughout India, though private bodies, will be treated as public servants because these bodies perform public functions akin to state functions, and therefore in the concurrent list
therefore
as
you
well.
need to go back to the whole thing about the question of the state, which is the BCCI judgment. Then you have to go back to Zee Telecom, BCCI, all of it.
The law and order, police and land everything else falls under the purview of the government, and this certainly falls under the purview of the state government.
To answer that straight, that does not remove the process that has to be correct in law.
Okay.
The process that has to be correct in law has to be followed.
Okay, I think this has been a fascinating look at a little bit of the constitution and an interpretation, various interpretations of the powers of the state government in the context of Delhi. I'd like to thank both of you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for a very, very balanced
Thank you.
discussion.
We're going to take
Yes,
a short break. You've been watching The Buck Stops Here. Do stay tuned.